going back to the basics, I'm in a regular school and I have been asked to monitor how my child is progressing, and I want to ask them about an IEP. What does an IEP mean, and how can I ask the school to provide my child one?
So IEP is usually generated by special educators, right? So a teacher wouldn't really know how to develop an IEP. IEP is Individualized Education Plan. That is a plan that you're creating for that specific child. So for that, the special educator would have done a baseline assessment, right? Like level one, or the child is between 6 and 7 years old. So I'm going to check him for the grade one, whether he's able to do the grade one or not. If he's not able to do, how far below is he? If at all it is 2 years below his expected level, then I will develop an IEP. Otherwise, I will just give recommendations for the teachers to slow things down for him, right? So the IEPs usually, again, are developed for only 3 months. It should not be for a year. Most schools develop it for a year because it's a hassle, right? So because each child, we call it as learning curve. When there is a high, there is also a place where there is a plateau where you don't really do much, and then there's a low as well. So to track this becomes very difficult. So therefore, IEPs have to be for every 3 months rather than a year, right? So what happens is that a school with a resource room and a special educator would develop an IEP if the child is going to the resource room. Again, majority of the schools should not be charging extra in their fees for the resource room, but nowadays schools have begun to charge for the resource room availability. So the parents decide not to send them, right? But so you will get the IEP only if you send the children to the resource room, and technically the special educator should ask your permission to do the baseline assessment. But if they have not taken permission, or then kindly you have every authority to check with the school on why the assessment was done without your permission, right? So and if at all they have developed an IEP, they usually share. They don't keep it to themselves at all. And every parent has the right to check on. So, for example, what does the IEP entail? When you do an assessment, you realize the child is actually not bad at reading, but what the child is finding it difficult is the comprehension. They're not comprehending what they read, right? So that time your focus will be only on the comprehension aspect. Sometimes when the comprehension issues are happening, you also get into the spelling of it, whether the child understands what he's reading. Is it because of the spelling error that he's doing, or is it because he's not putting meaning to that word, right? So we also get into spelling. So I've chosen comprehension and spelling as my skills, right? That I'll work with the child. Then in that is the topic that I have, or the skill that I have chosen. In the skill of comprehension, I will get into the sub skill. So in comprehension, what will the child work upon? So is it the direct thinking, or is it the inferential thinking? Is it the identification of the keywords, or is it the meaning of the word that I'm getting into, right? And then when you take that, you put a long-term goal and a short-term goal. So, for example, if the child say the goal, the sub goal was picture comprehension, the long-term goal will be the child will be able to give 5 sentences in 10 minutes time looking at a picture. And the short-term goal, long-term goal is usually for 3 months. Short-term goal is a monthly goal that you put, right? So in a month, the child should be able to learn to give at least 2 sentences. So by the end of the third month, you reach a 5 sentence level. So it has to be systematic. How is IEP different from lesson plan? Is because it has to be systematic. You cannot write things like the child in spelling will learn 50 words in a month and not do it, right? So it has to be as per the child. So when I, as a special educator, look at the IEP, it gives me an idea on how well what is the learning capacity of the child. So that way, when I draw the next IEP, or I change the school and the next school teacher looks at it, they have a realistic expectation of the child, and they are not in the assumption that, oh, he learned all the 50 words in 1 month. right? So it systematically breaks. It's more than the goal as such. It's like how much the capacity of the child, and is the child independent, dependent, or prompt driven, right? So independent would be they do it by themselves. Dependent would be where I have to tell him every single word, and the child in every single word will look at me for every single letter. Prompt driven would be like wherein he just needs a motivation. You can do it. That's absolutely right. I know you could do it. Or the child with my expectation of 5 sentences was able to write only 3 sentences, then I will write prompt driven, because we will set a realistic expectation with each other. I will tell today you wrote 3 sentences. Do you think tomorrow you can write 4 sentences? Right? So you are making the child responsible for it himself. So all these basically comes into the IEP, and the planning becomes easier for the teacher. And the special educator thereby gets an idea on how to communicate it to the teacher in turn, saying that, oh, if at all you're targeting that much, the child won't be able to do target only this much. Right. So that's when the smooth transition happens. So drawing up IEP absolutely requires realistic expectation from the child, where the special educators also know what is their capacity.
Is it across multiple subjects, or it could be just across
No, so
specific
IEP,
areas?
as I said, it's a specific area. We don't do IEPs for subjects. I mean, you can when the child is older, but in the earlier years, it's only skill oriented. It's not subject oriented.